Hey guys, tonight we drift into a myth where vines slither across wooden decks, phantom panthers nap beside coiled ropes, and a bunch of pirates learn, slowly and a bit too late, that kidnapping a wine god isn't the smartest career move. You'll start this journey on the calm, blue waters of the Aegean Sea, where the air smells of salt and adventure. You're a humble sailor today, just trying to get through your shift without anyone asking you to swab anything. Unfortunately, the rest of your crew has other plans. They've just scooped up a suspiciously chill young man from the shoreline. Curly hair, purple robe, mysterious aura, the whole celestial package, and they're convinced he's a rich prince ripe for ransoming. You try to tell them that princes usually don't arrive barefoot, humming, and accompanied by a strange breeze, but no one listens to the sensible crew member, do they? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun has only just begun to dip below the horizon when the pirates spot him, standing perfectly still on the beach, gazing at the sea as if waiting for something. His robes shimmer slightly, even though there's no wind. A few of the pirates, being your average overconfident ancient seafarers, immediately jump to conclusions. He's a prince, one says. Look at the way he's dressed! His alone, another chimes in, probably shipwrecked and loaded with family gold. Now, if you've spent any time on a pirate ship in ancient Greece, and who hasn't, really, you'll know that logic isn't exactly the crew's strong suit. And greed, oh, greed is the captain of this ship. Before long, they row ashore, grab the young man, and haul him aboard. You're watching from the rigging, wondering if this is going to be like that time. Someone tried to ransom a merchant's son, only to discover he had 6 older brothers who were all in the Navy. This time, though, it's weirder. The man doesn't resist. He smiles, slowly, and asks politely where you're headed. His voice has the kind of softness that makes you forget he's technically your prisoner. He's tied up, but he doesn't struggle. He just sits quietly at the bow of the ship, watching the sky turn pink with sunset. If anything, he looks amused. The rope doesn't dig into his skin. Somehow, it seems to relax against him. And then there's his eyes, deep, dark, and oddly bottomless. Like if you looked long enough, you might fall through time itself. You blink, and he's still smiling. You're not the only one feeling something's off. One of the older crew members scratches his head. Something about this fella ain't right. But the captain, who only reads maps and occasionally reads the room, brushes him off. Just a boy with fancy robes, he says. We'll get a chest of silver out of him, maybe even a villa. You try to go back to adjusting the sails, but your eyes keep drifting toward him, the prisoner, or, as you're starting to think of him, the very relaxed problem on board. Historians still argue whether this myth originated as a cautionary tale about hubris or as a dramatization of ancient rituals. Either way, the vibe is unmistakable. The pirates have made a grave miscalculation. There's a brief moment just after dusk where the sea goes glassy, the oars stop creaking, the sails barely flutter, and for just one breath, everything is so still that you could swear the stars above you pause to listen. Then, the scent hits. You're used to the usual smells of ship life: salt, sweat, fish, more salt, and occasional despair. But this is something new. Sweet, almost floral, like ripe grapes crushed underfoot, and it's coming from the deck. You crouch near one of the barrels, sniff it. Empty, bone dry. But there's something wet seeping from the cracks in the wood, purple and fragrant. Wine. No one packed wine. You look at the captive again. His eyes are closed now, still smiling, still silent, not a drop of sweat on him, despite the growing tension in the air. By now, even the densest crewmates are starting to shift uncomfortably. The helmsman mutters something about omens. You're thinking of that old myth your grandmother once whispered, about the god of wine who wanders the land, barefoot and dreamy-eyed, offering madness or miracles depending on his mood. You glance at the rope around his wrists. It's starting to look greener than rope should look. A little vine-like. You blink once, maybe twice, because surely ropes don't sprout leaves. But they do now. A slender green tendrils curl around the young man's wrists where the hemp bindings used to be. Not tight, more like decorative, like nature decided to accessorize him with matching ivy bracelets. You step back, one creaky plank at a time. The crew hasn't noticed yet. They're still arguing about whether to steer toward Delos or Naxos. The captain insists on Delos. Good port, easy money. But the helmsman scratches his beard and mutters again. Something about bad signs and weird grapes. You nod silently. Weird grapes, indeed. The man, the prisoner, God something, opens his eyes. You pretend to be busy with a coil of rope, but you can feel his gaze land on you like warm sunlight. There's no accusation in it. No malice. Just calm. Deep, syrupy calm. The kind of gaze that makes you forget what you were doing. Or who you are. You wonder for a moment if it would really be so bad to just sit beside him and stare at the ocean forever. Then, someone screams. A barrel has burst. Not broken. Burst. With a sound like a wet sigh, wine spills across the deck in a slow river. Dark red, sticky, and absurdly fragrant. You know it's not from your supplies. There was nothing in there. That barrel was filled with rope. Or was it? Now every nose on deck is twitching. The scent is overwhelming. Some of the crew looks hungry. Others look nauseous. One man, unfortunately, begins drinking straight off the deck. You're pretty sure that violates at least 3 maritime health codes, but no one stops him. Meanwhile, the vines are growing bolder. They creep from the base of the mast, first like innocent creepers, then bolder, leafier, almost purposeful, as if they know where they're going. As if they've done this before, the mainsail flutters, no wind, and the lines above begin to twist into something distinctly botanical. Still, no one moves to untie the captive. You, on the other hand, are now reconsidering all your life decisions, particularly the one where you didn't become a goat farmer inland, where gods rarely disguise themselves as castaways. You lean against the rail, trying to remember if Dionysus was the wine one or the chaos one, or both. Turns out, both, because now the air's changing again, not just floral, not just sweet, but rich, heavy, like you've wandered into a vineyard at harvest time, barefoot, drunk, and about to propose to a grape. One of the pirates, a particularly gruff fellow with a voice like gravel, finally snaps. "I don't like this," he growls. "I don't like it one bit." His hand goes to the dagger at his waist. And that's when the god smiles wider. A soft breeze rises, though the sails remain still. The ropes overhead creak. And somewhere, definitely from below deck, you hear a faint, unmistakable laugh. No one is down there. At least, no one who was supposed to be. You glance at the captive again. He's resting now, head tilted against the mast like he's settling in for a nap. You notice his crown. Somehow you hadn't before. It's made of ivy, twisted with tiny purple blossoms and little golden berries. You're pretty sure that's not something a normal person wears. Even a prince. Historians still argue whether this tale was ever meant to be taken literally. Some claim it's an allegory, about the overwhelming power of nature, or the madness of divine ecstasy. Others argue it's a metaphor for wine itself, seductive, transformative, and just a little bit terrifying. Then, there are the fringe scholars who say it's a memory of some ancient rite, where mortals willingly surrendered themselves to Dionysian frenzy. You, however, are experiencing none of these theories. You're just living it. The gruff pirate moves closer to the god. His dagger glints. He raises it, just a little. The vines don't like that. With a sound like wind in tall grass, they lash upward, not violently, not yet, but enough to wrap around the man's arm. He yells, drops the dagger, and tries to shake it off, but the vine clings like it's always known him. The other pirates scatter. One climbs the rigging. Another pretends to check the rudder very quickly. You remain at your post, heart drumming a sleepy sort of rhythm. It's hard to panic, somehow. The air is too thick, too sweet. The sunset has turned velvety. The ocean glows like molten glass. The god doesn't move. He just hums, soft, tuneless, but deeply unsettling in how pleasant it is. One of the older crew members shuffles toward the god, rope in hand. "Should we tie him up again?" he asks. You don't have the heart to tell him the vines already beat him to it. Below your feet, the ship creaks. Not the usual creak of old wood, mind you. This is different. This is the sound of something ancient stretching awake. Like the ship is no longer a ship, but something else. Something halfway between wood and root. You glance over the side and notice the oars are now twisted. The handles are slick with moss, and there's a fig tree blooming out of a barrel. Of course there is. You wonder how long you've been at sea. Hours, days. Time feels unreliable. The moon is rising, but it's the wrong shape. Or maybe your eyes are playing tricks. And through it all, the god sits still, the vines ever twirling, and the ship sails on. By now, no one is pretending this is normal. The pirates have scattered across the deck like marbles on a tilting table, each finding some task to look busy with, adjusting sails that don't need adjusting, cleaning parts of the ship that haven't seen a mop in years, or just staring meaningfully at the horizon like they might spot sanity out there somewhere. But the ship isn't really a ship anymore. You place your hand against the wooden railing, and it's soft. Not mushy, just springy, alive. There's a thin fuzz of moss under your palm, and you swear the grain of the wood has started to curl like bark. One of the ropes overhead now has tiny grape clusters forming along it, green and tight as fists. They sway gently, even though there's no wind. You spot a snail. Where did the snail come from? The god is still sitting, still smiling. His eyes are half-lidded now, like he's halfway between sleep and revelation. One of the younger crewmates, barely more than a boy, whispers, "What if he's not a prince?" "Too late, kid." A low, rhythmic thump begins. It's not the waves, it's coming from below deck. At first, you think someone's drumming. Then you remember, no one's down there. At least, no one who'd be in the mood for percussion. The thump becomes a beat, a slow, pulsing rhythm, like footsteps, heavy ones, followed by a soft snarl. Panthers, that's what you hear, not lions. Panthers, silken-footed, breath-warm, totally not on the ship an hour ago. Panthers. You glance at the trapdoor leading to the lower deck. Something golden glints through the slats, eyes, watching, curious, patient. One of the pirates opens his mouth to scream, then decides against it. He backs away from the door, muttering a prayer to Hermes under his breath. Swift feet, faster ship, please don't let me get eaten. You're starting to piece it all together now. The wine, the vines, the fig tree, the musical growling downstairs. This is Dionysus, god of wine, madness, parties, panthers, and, you guess, elaborate practical jokes involving doomed pirates. Historians still argue whether Dionysus was always a Greek god, or if he came from even older traditions. Some trace his origins to Thrace, others to India. He's a wandering god, they say, one who never quite settles. His rites were rowdy, his festivals legendary, and his followers, well, famously barefoot. The vines have now fully claimed the mast. Leaves spread like sails. The crow's nest. Now a full-blown grape arbor. A fat bunch of grapes thunks down beside your boot. You don't eat it. Yet. Over near the stern, the captain is still pretending to be in charge. He barks out orders that no one follows, waving his arms and gesturing at the horizon as if someone will rescue you from a floating vineyard. In the middle of the wine, dark sea, with panthers, a soft growl behind him makes him spin on his heels. There's nothing there, but he spins again. The growl purrs closer this time. You swear the shadows move just slightly faster than they should. You'd laugh if your throat weren't so dry, which is odd considering you're surrounded by wine. You glance down at the deck, where rivulets of it still flow in lazy loops. Some of it's begun to pool, oddly, like it knows where it's going, like it's being gathered for something. The god, Dionysus now, you're sure of it, finally moves. He stands, stretching like he just woke from a long nap. The vines part around him like curtains, and his bare feet make no sound on the deck. He turns to look at the horizon, then at you. You freeze. Then, he smiles again, and raises a hand. The air shifts. The beat below becomes louder. Drums, hooves, you can't tell. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe it's just the sound of your heart pretending to keep up. And now, from below deck, emerge the panthers. 2 of them. They don't snarl. They don't rush. They walk with the casual confidence of creatures who know exactly where they are in the food chain. Their golden eyes flick from pirate to pirate. They stop beside Dionysus, who gently rests a hand on one of their heads. It purrs. Deep, rumbling sound that vibrates your ribs. The captain finally finds his voice. This is a trick, he says. A spell! Witchcraft? Dionysus tilts his head. You watch as the vines at the captain's feet rise. Not fast, not angry, just curious. They coil around his boots like affectionate cats. He kicks at them, panics, reaches for a sword that's now wrapped in ivy. The vines aren't hurting him, but they're not letting go, either. More vines slither up the sides of the ship. The rails creak as tendrils slide through the wood like veins. You hear a laugh, not from Dionysus this time. From the ship itself, or maybe from the sea. Somewhere overhead, a cluster of figs bursts open. A sweet, sticky scent drifts through the air. A bee lands on your shoulder. You don't brush it away, and then it happens. The ship sighs, not creaks, not groans, sighs, and you realize, with a slow, shivery certainty, that you are no longer on a ship. You are on him. The vessel has become part of Dionysus's will. The vines are not decorations. The panthers are not pets. The sea is not obeying the wind. It's following his hum. One of the pirates, now crying quietly, kneels. We didn't know, he whispers. We didn't know it was you. Dionysus doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The grapes above your head shimmer like stars. The sky darkens, but not ominously, more like the closing of a curtain. A warm breeze brushes your face, and somewhere in the distance, you hear flutes. Flutes, where there were none. The flutes don't come from anywhere specific. They're just there, curling around the ship like sound made of fog. You'd swear they were being played in a nearby grove if you weren't floating miles from land. The music is soft, winding, not exactly a tune, but more like the idea of one, a melody you almost remember from a dream you didn't have. You close your eyes for a moment and feel your pulse slow to match the rhythm. Not that thumping panic from earlier. No, this is slower, like a heartbeat underwater. Dionysus walks to the bow. The vines part for him. The panthers trail behind, their paws leaving no mark on the now lush deck. Grape leaves sway in time with his movement. And when he reaches the prow and gazes out at the endless blue, the ship shifts under your feet. Not violently, not with force, but with purpose. As if it's no longer floating but following. You follow too. Because what else are you going to do? Grab an oar and try to row back to before. No thanks. You stand near the main mast, or what used to be the mast. It's become a thin cypress tree now, impossibly tall for such a narrow base, and somehow full of birds. One of them hops down to the railing beside you. A thrush, maybe. Its song warbles in sync with the distant flutes. You raise an eyebrow. The bird raises one back, metaphorically. Historians still argue whether Dionysus's ship transformation was myth, memory, or metaphor. Some say it represents the blurring of human boundaries between wild and civilized, land and sea, mortal and divine. Others say it was just a good party story that got wildly out of hand over a few centuries. But one detail appears across almost every version. The pirates never jumped. They were changed. You spot the captain again. He's quieter now, his posture slumped, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. A vine rests on his shoulder like a sleepy pet. The dagger at his belt is covered in moss, no longer sharp, barely visible. He doesn't seem to mind. Another pirate, the one who tried drinking off the deck earlier, is now humming. You're not sure when he started, but it's definitely a harmony line. The melody isn't one you recognize, but it sounds older than anything you've ever heard. The god doesn't give commands. He doesn't need to. He simply exists, and the world responds. A gull overhead cries once, then vanishes into a thick patch of mist that wasn't there 5 seconds ago. When it clears, you swear you see land on the horizon. Not rocky, not coastal, but soft, rolling hills, olive trees, white buildings that catch the light like glass. But then it's gone. You blink and it's just sea again. The helmsman finally speaks. "I dreamed of this," he says. You look over. "What? This? Not like this?" He murmurs, not looking at you. "But this feeling, like you're walking into the oldest part of yourself." You nod slowly. "That feels accurate." Back near the stern, one of the crew starts laughing. It's not maniacal. It's not even that loud. It's just joyful. Like he's finally let go of something. Like someone told him the punchline to a joke he's been waiting his whole life to hear. A butterfly lands on his beard. No one questions it. Now Dionysus turns. He doesn't speak, but you feel the meaning anyway. Look. So you do. Over the edge of the ship, no. The vine barge you're somehow sailing on. You see fish. Dozens. Hundreds. They're not swimming away from the ship, as you'd expect. They're following it. Schools of shimmering silver and gold, like confetti in water. And then you see the dolphins. 3 of them, sleek and pale, arching beside the ship in perfect time. They chirp and click and seem almost to be laughing. One flips playfully before diving again, its tail slapping the sea in applause. You remember now. In some versions of this myth, the pirates were turned into dolphins. Their punishment wasn't death, it was transformation, condemned, or blessed, to follow the god forever in a more fluid form. You glance at the flailing first mate, whose shoes have long been claimed by vines. His feet are bare. He's started clicking his tongue. You try not to read into it, but the air is heavier now, and it carries more than just music. There's expectation in it. The kind of hush you feel in a temple, or right before the sky breaks open with rain. It's not threatening, just undeniable. Dionysus raises one hand. The vines pause in their growth. The panthers sit. The birds hush. Even the sea seems to flatten. And then he lowers it. Instantly, a gust of wind, real this time, sweeps across the deck. It smells of honey and something spiced you can't place. Maybe cinnamon, or resin. You think of wine left out in the sun too long. Thick, sweet, a little dangerous. And in that moment, you understand, this was never about punishment. It was about revelation. The god doesn't punish like the others. He transforms. You don't get burned up. You get rewritten. A pirate near you has leaves in his beard. He doesn't seem upset about it. Another has started singing, something slow, with long vowels, a lullaby to the sea. And you're just along for the ride now. You lean back against a grapevine and close your eyes. Somewhere in the distance, a flute plays on. When you wake up, or maybe you never slept, the sky is lilac. It's that strange, not quite sunset, Not quite dawn hue that makes everything feel softly unreal. The water glows faintly purple, like wine poured too thin, and the sails, now fully covered in flowering vines, flutter without wind. The ship isn't moving, technically, but it feels like you're gliding. The crew is changed. Subtly at first. No fangs, no wings, nothing from a monster manual. Just gentler, softer in the eyes. The lines of suspicion and ambition ironed out. They don't bark orders or argue anymore. Instead, they speak in murmurs, finish each other's sentences, laugh at things you don't hear. One pirate has made a crown out of fig leaves. It suits him disturbingly well. Another has tamed one of the panthers, or at least reached an agreement. The big cat lies across his lap like a sleepy dog, flicking its tail in slow contentment. And then there's Dionysus. He now stands barefoot at the helm, though helm may be the wrong word, since the ship no longer responds to rudder or rope. His presence is what steers you. You move with him, like the ship is just a large sandal he's casually wearing across the sea. He hums, now and then. You don't recognize the tune, but your bones do. One of the crew offers him a drink, which is adorable, as if the god of wine needs someone else to pour. Still, Dionysus accepts with a nod, and the cup fills on its own. No jug, no hand, just full. Historians still argue whether Dionysus's wine was symbolic, freedom from inhibition, a metaphor for divine madness, or something far more literal. After all, in most myths, it wasn't just about the drink, but what it unlocked: ecstasy, transformation, unity with the divine. You shift your gaze outward and spot something new. Land, real land, this time. No shimmering mirage. White cliffs, olive trees clinging to slopes, a small temple perched like a watchful dove above the bay. You don't recognize the architecture. The columns are a little too slim, the statues a little too wild-eyed. You look to Dionysus. He doesn't glance at the land, just smiles faintly. You won't like it there, he says quietly. It's the first thing he's said out loud. The voice is calm, deep, impossible to place in age or accent. It sounds like someone who's been to every party that ever happened and still remembers the first one. Too clean, he adds. Too quiet. One of the pirates, formerly the loudest, rudest one, nods. I like the ship better, he says, plucking a grape and popping it into his mouth without blinking. It's got rhythm. Someone chuckles. You realize you agree. The ship has rhythm. Not just the flutes or the drums below, or the occasional roar of a panther yawning like a lion at brunch. It's the movement. The way everything sways together. Crew, god, sails, sea. A kind of messy harmony. A chaos with choreography. Remember how you got here. Neither do they. One pirate now paints on the deck with red wine. Not pictures, just swirling lines. Abstract, yet hypnotic. Another plays an ancient lyre you're almost certain he didn't have before. His fingers move like they've been doing this for decades. Maybe they have. And you breathe in, slow and deep. The air tastes like rosemary and fig sap. Somewhere behind you, a pirate sings an ode to a goat. It's oddly moving. Dionysus raises his cup again. This time, the liquid inside shimmers gold. Not wine, not water, something older. He sips once, then offers the cup to you. You hesitate, but only for a moment. The cup is warm, not from heat, but from life. You take a sip. The taste, hard to describe. It's not sweet, not bitter. It's memory. Not yours, someone else's, maybe everyone's. You taste cave walls painted with ochre hands. You taste a clay jug passed between dancers. You taste someone laughing under stars thousands of years gone. You hand the cup back. Dionysus smiles and nods, as if to say yes. That's what it means. He walks toward the bow again. The panthers follow. One glances back at you with a look that says, "Good choice." You lean over the rail again. The dolphins are still there, gliding beside you. One flips. Another clicks a tune you recognize from a lullaby you've never heard before. You click back, just to see what happens. They laugh. You laugh. The land slips further behind now. You don't miss it. The horizon is open again, endless and soft, like a blanket being turned down at the edge of the world. No one speaks, but everyone understands. That's the strange thing about being in the orbit of a god like Dionysus. You don't need instructions. You don't need logic. You need rhythm, repetition, trust in the weirdness, and grapes. Lots of grapes. The ship turns, not by helm or hand, but because the god decides it's time to change course. You don't question where to. No one does. The ship knows. And so do you. And so that enchanted ship, now transformed into a floating garden, gently cut through the waves toward the horizon. But their destination was no harbor, no pirate island, but a place uncharted on any map. A place where time bends like light through wine. What awaits them? A curse, a feast, or the ocean's most punctual turtle god. Join me next time, when Dionysus leads the way into the realm of dreams, where the laws of matter melt like ripe grapes under the sun. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next part, and let me know in the comments, do you think those pirates deserve redemption? We'll see each other again soon!